Yes, welcome to Tour Buds Live. I am your host, Andy, and I am with my co-host, Derek G. What's up, Derek?
What's going on? So, Andy, as you know, this show's all about helping the up and coming bands, sharing stories and advice from musicians, industry pros, what it's like to live life on the road, off the road, the good stuff, the bad stuff, all the in between. Whether you're in a band, part of the scene, love music, this is your spot to hang out, get inspired. Andy, let's get into it.
Yeah, all are welcome. I don't care who you love, what you look like. You're all welcome and you're all very loved here. Today is a really cool episode. We're talking with Mr. Jesse Zaraska. He will be on very shortly. This band, it means a lot to me because it's interesting because I grew up with like jazz, as you know. My father just buried me in jazz, and I love that. I love that about him. And I got to like as I started getting older, like 12, 13, start get a little angsty, start listening to heavier music. Napster was a thing at the time. I started rocking some heavy music and I started hearing people yell at me. And I like this. This is cool. And I was listening to this band, Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, and I was like, this band's insane. What the hell is this? Like, just changed my world. And then all of a sudden, I found something. This dude in actually, I think it was like a youth group or something like that. This kid gave me this CD. And it's interesting because like now everything's like playlists, but like I love that it was just like this dude just gave me a CD and he was like, just listen to this. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't know
Yep.
that this CD would change my fucking life. It was insane. I put this thing on and I'm just like, it just first of all, like it was so brutal, so technical, and then all of a sudden it was just so beautiful. And I'm like,
So pretty.
this is what I need. This is what I've been because I started listening to jazz and then I went onto like Metallica, Megadeth, and it's like I think for me, I don't know about you, like metal is kind of like a drug, and you're always looking for something heavier, something stronger, right?
Definitely.
I needed that.
Oh,
But then also there was that jazzy side in me where I needed some kind of little zest, a little zing, little beauty,
little
you know?
surprise.
Yeah. And honestly, and then I the thing is like Jesse also like that was like the first time I heard what someone was screaming at me was saying. His
Right.
vocals were so, clear on of Malice and the Magnum Heart. It was just like, holy shit, I and like and that's the time where you also like open up you still got to read the lyrics. You actually get the artwork, you read the lyrics. And
Booklet.
so that's why like this band meant so much to me because I was like kind of upset, pissed, going through my own thing as a young teen. Like I
Mhm.
had my own heartbreak, my own like, so to speak. And like, my mom leaving my mom choosing a different, path that led her away from me and my brother. But it was like it that like I felt that like the feelings of betrayal. I felt the feelings of anger and like hurt and loss, and it just meant so much to me. And then also there was this aspect of the band where it's like so technical. As a drummer myself, I was just like immersed into the drumming, and I like as you get to learn it and understand it, you feel like you're breaking like the code, like the Da Vinci Code or some shit like that. As soon as you like understand the part that I don't know, it's like and when you finally understand that part, it's like a brain massage. It feels so good.
Mhm.
So, and that's Misery Signals is a band that keeps giving because there's parts that I still don't fully understand, and I
That
fucking
have been
love that.
torturing you for the last almost 20
Yeah,
years.
yeah. It's been torturing me, but it's also keeping things interesting because it's like
Of course.
I don't know. It's like if you're dating someone or with someone and they're so nice all the time and you just get them all the time, it's gonna be boring. And
Right.
you know what I mean? But Derek,
Yep.
you were at the Misery Signals last show in New York with me. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Warsaw. It was fucking amazing. I'd say one of the first, heavier bands I caught was Misery Signals for sure, and same kind of same kind of setup where like, all your friends kind of bring their CD or their non-iPads yet, just MP3 players, and just plug it in, and you're skating in the driveway or something, and Misery Signal is just one of those ones that caught. Never actually got to go see them until that farewell tour. So it was just one of those like great nostalgic get to experience like the whole thing, right? Like feel it. Obviously, me and you both love going to shows because that's like, listening to music on the radio is cool, but like being there and feeling it and feeling everybody else around, like the emotion and all that. It was, way blew my expectations.
Yeah,
Um,
unreal.
Very cool.
I don't want to get like I don't want to talk too much about that yet. That last show and all that stuff. I'll probably get it'll probably mess me up. Probably make my eyes wet and shit. I don't want that. But
Can't
listen, I
start
think
that
I
early.
think we need to talk to Jesse. With no further ado, Mr. Jesse Zaraska from Misery Signals. Hello. Oh, Captain, my Captain, Mr. Z, Jesse Zaraska, welcome to the show.
Hello, fellas. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, listen,
We're very happy to have you.
thank your family for giving us the time. And this is really cool. I'm so interested because when we were talking, chatting a little bit on in Instagram, you mentioned that, well, not only are you a teacher of English, but you are also a coach in soccer. Wow. Take me through that because I want to know what type of coach you are exactly. Are you that coach that's just chill, very, very supportive and very kind and understanding? Or are you cutthroat and you're ready to cut that other coach across the field? What like
I'm
tell
the
me take me through
assist.
that.
I'm the assistant coach. My wife is the head coach. So
So she is it cutthroat.
Carly, my wife, has taught our daughter Mazzie's team for the last 3 years. This is the first year that I have assisted. So I'm just learning the ropes, like just doing my best to be open to the experience. I just tell myself it's like I never played soccer much as a kid. I mean, I played it like at recess and stuff at school, but I never played it in league.
Mhm.
So I just tell myself it's pretty much like hockey, and I can do it.
Yeah.
It's been
Hockey
I'm
on
it's
so
been,
grass.
it's been a
Perfect.
great experience, like a wonderful thing to be part of. So happy to do it.
It is fun.
so
So I coach as well. I'm a baseball coach. I get a couple kids. So I've been
Yeah,
I've been dadding all day, gymnastics tournament and some basketball games and all that fun stuff. So it's
right
a
on.
it's a fun it's a fun thing to watch and kind of get to know your kids' friends through that way and kind of get to
Absolutely.
understand what kind of kids they are, what kind of people, and like it's a lot of fun to do.
We had a big game this afternoon. We took a hard beating today, but it was
uh,
good.
Ooh.
Lots to talk about at practice on Tuesday.
Exactly.
there's
That's
always
great.
do you guys give the awards no matter what? Is that a thing still? Like the participation trophy?
I mean, every kid gets like what do they get? They get a medal at the end of the
Okay.
end of the year. Yeah.
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 But do the winners get the better medal? I think that's
These
very
are these
important.
are 6 and 7 year old girls, so there's not like a
They
big
gotta learn
tournament
sometime,
or
Jesse.
anything like
They
that.
gotta learn. Hey, so Mr. Z, take me through what it's like being a teacher nowadays. What is your teaching style? I'm pretty sure I've heard through the grapevine that you went from like what 11th grade. Now you're like teaching younger kids, right? Or is that not a thing now?
Yeah, so I initially was a high school English teacher, but I currently run this program for junior high kids who have been expelled from other schools, or a lot of kids actually that are just have some high level of anxiety, maybe have been bullied at other schools. Quite a few kids that identify as LGBTQ plus or something of that variety. So it's a really cool program. I have grade eights in the morning, grade nines in the afternoon, and we cap it at 16 kids. So it's a small classroom size. Most of these kids have had some negative experience at school in the past. So
Hmm.
maybe lots of absenteeism. So I just try to sort of fill in the gaps from previous years and get them back on track and get them sort of feeling good about themselves in school again, in hopes that by grade 10, which is high school for us here, um, hopefully they can go back into the traditional stream.
That's uh that's an
Cool.
absolutely brutal age of life because that was like my worst time in my life
Yeah,
where
and
I was oh
it
that has
was
to be
it
tough.
was for me as well. That's when I started experiencing a lot of trouble and tumultuous times, and school started to sort of take a back seat. So within 2 years of that, I actually was expelled myself. I never finished high school until I went back to become a teacher, and So this is a really special thing to be a part of, and it's like in my hometown too, where I grew up, and I'm literally teaching at the high school where I was expelled from in grade 11. So it's a
No
pretty
way.
full circle thing.
That's a
Nice full
great full
circle.
circle thing. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty impactful. Do you feel like teaching gives you that sense of, making a difference in the world, so to speak, especially what you're doing now? But do you have that sense of making the difference?
Yeah, certainly. It's something that I think I feel pride in all the time. And certainly something that, like, when I left Misery Signals the first time, I wanted to do something that was, I still thought was special, something where I was still making a positive change in the world, hopefully. So I
Mhm.
thought being a teacher was a good way to do that.
But do the I mean, even in your high school, when you were teaching in high school, did the kids each year know who you are and that you're actually a cool dude, not just some teacher? Like you're in a band that people love and stuff like that? Or did you want to keep that separate?
I mean, with the internet and everything nowadays, there's no way to keep that separate. So at first, when I went down to Saskatchewan, which is the province next to where I live, my wife and I were the first ones of our families to graduate university, let alone be teachers. So we moved down to Saskatchewan, and we're very far removed from everything down there. Um, Sorry, and I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
I was just saying how does what was I saying, Derek? Oh, I was
Yeah,
saying
we're
about
all
the kids about keeping things separate. Like, do they know that you're
Right.
a cool dude?
So when we first went
basically.
down to Saskatchewan, we moved, like, Carly and I did not have any connection in the in industry. So apply all over Saskatchewan, all over Western Canada, and got jobs like 12 hours away from home. So in the middle of farmland, Saskatchewan, and down there it was a K through 12 school that we were teaching at. And I didn't, with the band being Misery Signals, and with it being
pros.
so heavy, I guess at first I was a little bit timid about sharing that part of my life with rural Saskatchewan kids, but they find out very soon. And in a school like that, especially, right, there's like cousins and brothers and everyone's together. So like really quickly they shared that Mr. Z was a heavy metal singer. And
Yeah.
I've been at it now 12 years, so I guess it's something now that I see, especially in my current job, my current situation. It's something that helps, right? I don't think it's been anything that's ever hindered my ability to connect with kids. So overall, I use it to my advantage now.
Yeah, it kinda gives you street cred. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
listen to
yeah.
me because 'cause I'm kinda cool.
There's certainly a little bit of that. Yeah.
That's I love that. I imagine, like Derek, imagine if your teacher is Mr. Z and you're a kid.
No.
What are you gonna do? Like, that's just insane. Your kids probably behave and everything, like, I just I at that age, I actually got left back in the 8th grade because I was having so many issues at home, and I just wouldn't go to fucking class. But maybe if I had a Mr. Z as my teacher, maybe it would have helped me.
That's my philosophy, right? Like I think I'm definitely a different kind of teacher. Our program is very unique in the fact that they're only coming for core classes. So I'm only teaching math, social science, and English. They're only there for half days. Like they're only there for 2.5 hours each day. So
Mhm.
that's sort of the carrot right off the bat. And I certainly focus on the building of relationships and stuff through September, October. And I'm not hammering them with algebra right off the bat, you know. So it's definitely unique in the way that I deliver things, but we've had a lot of success. This is the third year that I've done it, and we're full right now. Like we're at capacity with both grades, and it's looking like they might expand the program and have to get another Mr. Z for next year. So we'll
That's
see.
dope.
Wow, that's
Love
incredible.
it. That's sick.
That's great.
I was wondering if you're going out on tour, right? You're playing these shows to a lot of people. Everyone knows every fucking lyric to your songs. Everyone's stoked, and you're sleeping in different places all the time. You come back home and you're probably day one, like you're kind of you need to get acclimated. I know how Derek and I used to tour. That's how we know each other. We were on sign
Right.
bands tour, blah blah. So like we know it's like you tour, you come back home, and then you wake up. First of all, you're a little disoriented. Where the fuck am I? So then Jesse from Missouri Signals has to wake up all of a sudden. And now you're Mr. Z, and you wake up. You're like, oh shit. Like, what is that feeling? Take me through the transformation from Jesse and Misery Signals to the now civilian.
I don't think there's like I don't think that there's a huge difference between those two people. I mean, they're certainly different hats that I have to wear, but I think especially like, for ultraviolet and stuff, I think the themes that I explored on ultraviolet and the sentiments that I expressed, I think are pretty positive, and that sort of carries over into the classroom for sure. I just try to be a positive force for those kids every day, and um, it's. I think there's some similarity there. I think that there always was, and I like when I was younger, I remember hearing about like the singer from Stretch Armstrong being a teacher, and I think that I don't think that was definitely an inspiration to me. So I think there's a pretty strong connection between teaching and being a lead singer. If you're doing it properly, you can really do some pretty awesome things. So it was, yeah, a natural progression for me, I believe.
That's
There
cool. Take
you
that connection from the crowd and things like that. It's the same, I guess you feel that impact of the crowd, and then when you get to the schools,
Yeah, and I
similar
mean,
if you
especially in
if
hardcore,
you
right? Like, I mean, when I was a kid, first playing in like death metal bands and stuff like that, I don't think that it was exactly the same thing, but that was
Mhm.
obviously the beauty, or part of the beauty of hardcore, is as a Canadian kid going down to America and starting to sort of see a lot of that, the positive social aspect of hardcore, or how it can be very, very positive, and the connection that
Very
is there
community
between.
based.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
impact you have on kids last forever, because I'll tell you this quick story, and I want your opinion on this. This is more of a question for me, not for you, actually. I had a teacher in high school, Mr. Scarpanito, beloved. This guy was just beloved, super sweet guy. But this dude broke my heart one day. This guy, we were like, I don't know, I may have been like talking in class, probably talking to some cute girl next to me. I was like, trying to flirt or whatever, not knowing what I was doing. And this guy calls me out, and he was like, "Listen, Andy, you," and I was always trying to be like the class clown, making people laugh, whatever. And he said to me, he was like, "Listen, you're a really nice guy, but you're not going to do anything special in life. You're just a really nice guy. Just keep calm, be quiet, and just you're going to be mid-level, just a nice dude." And I don't know, there's something he didn't say I'm not gonna amount to anything, you're a piece of shit, but he was like, "I'm not gonna do anything special." Like,
Right.
that stuck with me forever, and it's like something I've had to work on fighting, like doing anything, doing a show like this, it's like, "Can I do something special?" What I don't know, like, what is that alright, let me ask you, what do you think that was? Some tactic to push me, or was it just he was kind of pissed off?
I mean, I think like any profession, I think there's some people that should be out of the profession. And I think, educators, there's an expiry date. You see that I think with some older educators, not even older educators, just sometimes I don't think they belong working with kids, but some people just do it for the paycheck. And I don't think I'm fortunate, you know what I mean? Like I went into it with a passion, wanting to do it. I've had success with Misery Signals, so it's not like I have to teach. I do it because like I want to do it, and it's a positive thing. But not everybody's in that position. So um, I know lots of
Yeah.
people have had those negative experiences with teachers, and um, I will say that when you're a teacher and you're speaking 6 hours a day every day, you say some stupid shit sometimes. Like everybody's going to, you know what I mean? But those sorts of things are I think the things that we as educators have to be the most careful about. Like not to say stuff like that, because that stuff sticks with kids, and a
Forever.
lot of that stuff I think is some of the reasons a lot of my kids are with me is because they had those negative experiences with bad teachers previously that rubbed them the wrong way and led them down a worse path. So I do my best, Andy, to be the exact opposite of that guy, man, and instill
Dude,
some
I
passion and
love
hope and promise in those kids, man, every day.
Oh my god, I love
Yeah,
that. It's
it
so
seems
cool, like, it's cool you have it just I remember being a kid, you needed that person to look up to. If you didn't have it all the time at home, or kids are craving that. Kids are craving someone to look up to.
Absolutely, man.
yeah,
Yeah, we all need
it
leaders.
seems
We all need people to follow and look up to. So it's a super important job to do, and yeah, I'm proud to do it, man.
yeah, I
What were you
think
gonna
the
say,
art,
Darren?
I was gonna say, I think, in the school systems, like with artistic kids, that that translation's lost a little bit sometimes when you're trying to teach, proper English and math, and like it just might not be what that person's doing, so they
For
see
sure.
it as being lazy.
Yep.
Meanwhile, it's like, oh, this kid actually has like a really special thing that's going on that they just might not see because they're trying to accomplish their, you know, to the by the book, uh, you know, thing.
Absolutely. And that's one of the cool things about like the flexibility. My principal likes to use that word a lot, but like our program also is a lot of the time for like student athletes and people maybe who are like doing music on a high level or stuff like that, right? So it's a cool thing where they can kind of just use our program part time and then like go and do their skiing, going and do their skating, their hockey, whatever it may be.
Mhm. It's I want to talk to you because this is very recent. I just went to Canada. I was for the New Year's. I was in Quebec City. Before that, I was in Niagara. Check, Niagara Falls. You got to see it once at least.
That's right.
And so I was there twice last year, and one part of it, there when just north of New York, everyone's like really nice, and I heard a lot of like I'm sorry, like kind of like that cool like polite stuff. And then in Quebec City, it was very like no, you're sorry, and it was like very interesting. But what is that? I feel like overall Canadians are super super nice, but do you get along with Quebec City people or Quebec, or do you guys beef?
um, it's a unique situation. You know what I mean? Like it goes back to the beginning of the country, in a very tumultuous beginning, not too much unlike yours, like um it's a cool place. I respect the culture. I respect what they've added to our country. I respect how like, that's pretty much the difference between us and you guys is that blending of French and British culture, right?
Mhm.
Um, but certainly there's a little bit of like judgment sometimes when you go there. They're very much like you say, you're in our place. You should know our language.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of beef between sort of a lot of Western Canadians and then the Quebec side of Canadians, right? And there's been, you probably know, separatist, intentions at times and different situations where there's been a lot of tension between the East and the West. Being a social studies guy and a history guy, I like a lot of French culture. I think there's a lot of cool things that the French have done. When I've visited Quebec, I know that especially early on when I was a kid, like going there with compromise, man, Quebec City was like another world. It was not like I was in Canada. It was like I was in a totally different country, even for us as Canadians. Montreal, not so much, right? Montreal is definitely a little more bilingual, definitely a
Mhm.
little bit more friendly towards English or Anglophone speakers. Um, yeah,
What is
it's certainly different, man. It's definitely a
Yeah,
different vibe out there.
I think everyone just needs to kiss and make up, just
Yeah,
everyone. Just smooch it out.
yeah.
Smooch it out. Hashtag smooch it out. What are the major challenges in being from Canada, being Canadian and playing in a band in the United States?
Those are many. There are many. I mean, being a Canadian band is greatly challenging. Like us going into America, right? We have to get P2 visas. So that's a very expensive process. When we were young kids, we could not afford that. So we would sneak across the border in many different manners. Distance, geography is the biggest thing. Like Canada is the second biggest country in the world. We don't have near the population that you guys have. So as kids, like I grew up in Edmonton, we start to play shows when we're young teenagers. The biggest closest big city is Calgary, 3 hours away. So that's sort of the first place you go to, and then from there, like from Edmonton, the other biggest place would be like into Saskatchewan, but those are very small cities. So if you're going to tour to Regina or Saskatoon, we're talking like 6 or 8 hours, and really not a huge benefit to do that at that point in time. Like we did that lots, but probably not the most financially smart thing to do. Vancouver's 12 hours away from Edmonton, right? So that's really your biggest, closest big city where there was actually a hardcore scene and a metal scene, Um, so there's great challenges of geography, and then just it costs us money to go down there. It doesn't cost American bands to come up here. Americans just can come
Mhm.
up to Canada and tour. So that was always a challenge. But it's mostly just space. It's mostly just geography and population that adds such a challenge to
But I
being
mean,
able
when you guys were writing of Malice, like, were you guys I mean, you guys were mostly at your place, right? And or
That's,
did
I
you
mean,
have
a bit of back and forth, but there's also a
Right.
lot of, at that point, like sneaking across the border and stuff, right? For the
Mhm.
Americans, they didn't have to. So early on, I go down and we write the EP, and I'm basically living in Madison with the guys and in Milwaukee. And that's when Jeffrey from With Honors playing guitar. So Stuart's not there yet. It's just me. And at that point, because I'm solo, I could sneak across the border pretty easy, right? I stay down there for about 3 months. We write that EP, record it, we tour for 2 months straight. And then Jeffrey quits, and then Stuart joins. So once there was two Canadians in the band, that certainly was a little bit more challenging. Stuart came down, I think, and lived with us in Milwaukee for 2 or 3 months, and then the Americans came up to Canada and stayed at my place for about the same 3 or 4 months through like the harshest winter. um, so yeah, just like a lot of sneaking across the border, a lot of like fake recording contracts, a lot of like half truths, and yeah, just working
basically,
our
you're
butts
Make
off.
it
you're an
work.
absolute you're an outlaw, man. I love that about you. You're an
Back
absolute
then, I
outlaw.
mean, back then that was the norm, right? It was so
Yeah,
so hard for young teenage kids or early 20s to be doing all the things that were expected to do things properly to cross the border and such. So yeah, it was a great challenge, and we worked really hard to do that. Like Malice, I mean, we pretty much wrote in about just under a year, just very concentrated time, like jamming every single day for 4 or 5 hours a day, every single day. So
that's
um
crazy.
being a Canadian band is hard. Being a band that has Canadian and American members, maybe even harder.
Yeah. You guys pulled it off, and you guys did it for a while, and and we all appreciate that, so thank you for that. Hey, so you know what? I I'm a collector of art. I love art. It affects me, and what I love about art is that you could look at a piece of art and get something so different from someone else, or even the intention of the artist, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really great. And so when I was listening to of Malice, back in the day, I I felt the angst, the pain, the sorrow, the betrayal from maybe like this. I felt this longing for like, hey, you should have been there. You should have protected me. You were the one that. So for me, I don't know exactly where you were coming from, but I felt like I kind of took that as as I shared before, like, hey, my mom chose a life that didn't include me and my brother.
All right.
So I came at it listening to like, "Hey, how could you? How fucking dare you? Like, I loved you. Like, blood is forever. Like, love is forever. Like you said, like you said it." And I guess like forever meant nothing to you. And so I'm like, "Holy shit." So I am n- uh, there are so many people that feel this, that have been affected by your words, by your lyrics, that it's like so profound and deep. How does that make you feel that you have affected so many people?
I feel very proud and very happy about it. It's weird to be the artist, like I grew up in a household that was put music so high, and so I was taught from a very young age that to be a musician, to play in rock and roll bands was a really great thing. And I just worked really hard from a young age to study words, to study lyrics. Like we just did a poetry unit with my grade 8 kids, and I was just explaining to them, like, when I was a kid, I didn't understand that lyrics were poetry. It's just literally poetry put to music. And I just studied lyrics so much when I was a kid. I just sit around and read those booklets like you were talking about earlier, and just that stuff mattered to me so much. And I worked really really hard to um, do something of worth. And I think that Jordan Wodehouse, the guitar player from Compromise the Past, was just such a smart and passionate kid, and like his understanding of what how to really connect lyrically. it was genius basically. And I took so much from him, and I think from Mixon, Matt Mixon, the second singer in
Seven
Seven
Angels,
Angels.
some place, yeah.
I think, and Poison the Well too, right? I think that metalcore around that time, there was a lot of really heartfelt lyrics, and there was a lot of people that I could really look to, to sort of look to as leaders, and people to aspire to be like. So um, I just did my best, and I think also just the situations of my life, as crappy as it was, it just allowed me, it gave me some material to write about, and I made the best of those bad situations. If there's anything I think that I was good at, is kind of what you were touching upon, this idea that I was able to write about universal themes that everyone could connect to, or a lot of people could connect to, without being very, very specific about what I was getting at, right? And so you could sort of, like you said, put your own experience onto that, and that is what great art does for us, right? We can learn and we can heal, even if it wasn't necessarily meant to be directed completely at us or only at you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes you feel
Did
those lyrics make you feel just made me feel not alone, and yeah. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, no, what when in, I guess, your life, because I would imagine when you're in it, it's hard to sort of see and realize like the impact that you're actually having. When did it, or did it ever, like, just like actually hit you that you were connecting on such a deep level with the people listening to Misery Signals and the
Coming
projects
back,
you
like
were in?
coming back from Alice X, like we toured so hard and worked our butts off, in those early years, but I didn't really get to experience a lot of success, right? Like we were doing, sometimes we had some big tours, like Dillinger was a pretty good one for us, but for the most part, like what Malice became, it took a few years, and so when we released that record, was there some hype and some success around the band? Certainly, and some of that was also from Seven Angels, right, and the steam that they had behind them. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I so like it seemed like you were just a little upset at that time, right? Just a smidge. It's cool. You start with the first song, a victim, a target, and the first words, it just felt like you were, obviously you were calling someone out for playing the victim. I'm curious, what were you going through at that time, and who were you kind of talking to?
I don't know if I want to say all those things, because that sort of ruins some of the stuff we were just talking about, right? Like the
Mm,
openness of it.
okay,
Um, a victim, a target is actually kind of written to myself. It's me talking to myself partially.
I love that.
What do you know about sacrifice, right? Are you as good as you claim to be? Can you actually live to the standard that you hold others to? Is sort of what that's a bit about.
When the older I got, the more, as you become an adult, you go from being a kid and you're like pissed off. And for me, I grew up and I've loved, I've lost, and I've lost love. And I got to a point where with my mother, I got to a point where I just like felt so bad for her, and I stopped being angry and like, how could you? And I was like, holy shit, I know what it's like. I know how hard life is. And I know, and I love you. I'm sorry for you and I love you. And I think it's really cool with ultraviolet. It seems like there's parallels from like you went from like pissed to like super like positive, and I feel like there's part of that in getting older and going through life. You kind of change perspective. Can you take me through that life change for you, that different how that perspective changed for you as you grew?
Hopefully, right? I mean, I think that's the hope, is that we can all grow and change and become stronger, better people, more patient people, more kind people. Um, I was a troubled young man. I came from a very broken home. By the time I joined that band, I already had a lot of baggage in my backpack. I was carrying a lot of weight, and then the accident happened, right? And it's just like all of a sudden I'm thrust into this very, very um, tumultuous time. I'm just like sort of forced to deal with that as much as in the best way that I possibly could. Um, those songs, like it was I was pissed, and I was it's honest, and that's why that record's so good for that, like, but to be that mad for your whole life, man, that you couldn't do that. Like,
Yeah.
you'd end up being an alcoholic, a drug addict, like committing suicide. I don't know, like that was not healthy. It was healthy in the fact that I found a way to release that stuff, and it was cathartic, right? And it still is on some level to sing those songs. It's you don't ever fully heal, I don't think, from those extreme traumas of life, but you can learn from them, and can become a better person. And once I had a kid, honestly, it was about, what do I want to put out in the world this time? I love metal, I love heavy music. Does it always have to be negative? Does it always have to be, screaming about things that you dislike? And on some level, I mean, it kind of sometimes it has to be, or some of the best metal is. I don't discredit bands that do that, but for me, I wanted to put out a positive message into the world. And when Mazzy, my daughter, reads the lyrics of Ultraviolet, I know that I'll be more proud about them than I am about Malice. I love Malice, but it's a snapshot of a time, and it's like you said, like, I think when we're teenagers, we're all at that point at some point, but I think that's young angst, and I think the hope is that we get past that. And I think that's what Ultraviolet can kind of show, right? Is that heavy music doesn't have to be like that. I remember when, like, I loved Strapping Young Lad and Ocean Machine and stuff growing up, and Devin Townsend's work. And I was fortunate enough being a Western Canadian kid to sort of get to know him. And when he stopped doing Strapping, he said to me, he's like, I'm just not angry enough to do it anymore. I just can't do it. And I remember being, a 16-year-old kid and thinking, that's so weird. What do you mean, like, you're not angry enough? Like, I didn't like that answer. But as I got older, I understood it more.
Yeah, I've heard, if you look at SNL or, Chris Farley, I remember hearing interviews like those people were afraid to change parts of them that were unhealthy because that's what made them them. And that's like
Right.
that's also a scary place to be. It's like that part of you, that cancerous part of you brought you success, but then like as a human, you kind of need to grow and heal. And then it's also terrifying because like holy shit, I don't know. I mean, that has to be tough. But I mean, you obviously had some time to be away from the band, and then you came back. So you probably didn't have that pressure, right? It's just like a
I
new
think I
page.
think there's way more pressure, man. Like, I
Yeah.
think coming back after so long in different ways. I mean, obviously, just like physically and questioning, can I still scream like that and do those things physically? But that was a huge flip, right? And you think about those bands that we emulated and looked up to, the Poison, the Wells, the Seven Angels, the Seven Plagues, like Shai Hulud, like solely focusing on the negative aspects of life, like
Mhm.
literally, right? Um, that was a great challenge to take on, to say, hey, we're going to write the same kind of music, but I'm going to pretty much try and do a positive spin on all of these lyrics. Like, that was a daunting task. That was a scary thing. There was some people to look up to, but there was not a whole lot of examples to look to follow, so it was, yeah, it was scary to write Ultraviolet and to put it out in the world.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. I didn't think of that, how that could be more pressure. What is your
I think it's a
process in Go
sorry,
ahead,
Andy.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's like a really cool testament to you, and like, and for others to see. Like, there's a lot of musicians who are out there doing this thing who are hurt, have had, tough upbringings. It's a very common theme, and especially in like the heavy music scene,
For sure.
and in all music. But it's nice, and shows like that you are, for you especially, to be able to kind of almost document the growth that's happened in your life from one end to the other. I'm sure it's difficult, like you said, and like it was hard to kind of listen to those and even sing those songs sometimes. But to be at this end of it and be able to look back and actually reflect on like what that actually means is like a huge testament, and hopefully, something that other people realize and kind of take for like I can get there. I can be a happier person. I can be a more whole person, I guess.
Right.
Um in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing. If we can add that to the world, that's fantastic.
Take me through your process with lyrics. As a drummer, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, do you have like a notebook of lyrics and then you fit it to a song, or do you hear a song and then it inspires you to write the lyrics?
I think, as a kid growing up, I had all those questions, right? Like, do you write the lyrics first and then, when you put those on top of an existing song? Do you write around the lyrics? I think with heavy metal, especially like metalcore and what we do, it's a lot of like, a song exists, or for the most part, a song, pretty much is pretty much set. And then the singer comes and puts his stuff over top. That was certainly how we did it early on in Compromise and for Of Malice for sure. This time around with Ultraviolet, there was a definite conscious effort to not just do that and try to build things around vocals a little bit more. And Greg was really good about that. Greg, who did the record, just super smart guy, played in Shai Hulud, played in Misery Signals, has written a lot of great heavy music and understands heavy music. And so was conscious of that, so a little bit different, I think, through the years. And I think that there's not one right way to do it or a wrong way. It's just like sometimes different things work. And in fact, I think you want to use the different methods, to achieve a variety through the years.
Are you constantly writing? Just constantly write, even now? You just write.
uh, I'm a creative person, so I'm right now, like I write a lot of, I'm trying to finish a novel that I've been working on. So that's like the focus of the little bit of extra time that I have. That's where I put my creative energies these days. But as a kid, for surely, like being a troubled youth, I talk about this with my kids all the time, like journaling and doing a diary, writing in my journal was a very cathartic and positive thing for me as a young guy. Studying lyrics naturally meant, just that I would try and copy those lyrics, write my own. And by the time we were teenagers and starting to do bands, yeah, I was someone who always tried to, I guess, contribute my words to things. And then meeting Jordan Wodehouse, he was a similar character, just like such a poetic guy. And so, yeah, it was always an important thing to me from a very young age. I tried to get better at.
I'm interested in this novel. I can't wait for that to come out. I think we'll have to talk about that at the end for when I ask you what you have going on. I would like to hear that, but let me turn the page here. I've been in relationships. We were kind of talking about people, all that stuff. I've been in relationships where I like either left them or they left me. But either way, I just really like I always, you look back and it's like that's the person that got away. Or I wish I could have done that differently. And I wish I have a second chance. And then you never get it. And I Derek and I talk about this all the time that being in a band is like a relationship. It's so deep. You're creating together. You're in a fucking van or bus, whatever you're doing. You're living this life together. It's so intimate and special. And you guys, you guys left. I know the whole story. That you got kicked out and all that stuff. And then boom, you get a second chance. Did you How did it feel that you actually got that? Like, were you like this whole time were you, I wish I had the second chance, or you just kind of moved on and then it just fell into your lap? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, how
Yeah.
did it feel to get that chance to live it again?
It was everything. It was so important. Like, um, is all I wanted from the time I was 6 years old, and it's all I really focused on as a teenager and a guy in his early 20s. Just worked so hard to make a life doing music. So to join Seven Angels was a band that we loved. Like Jordan and I absolutely loved that band. So to tour with them was cool. So for me to get the chance to play with those guys was an absolutely amazing thing. And then to form Misery Signals and start touring the world the way that we did and have some level of success and play Hellfest and play these festivals that I heard about when I was younger. Like, it was such an amazing, amazing thing. But getting five people to move the same way for any length of time is a real great challenge, and young men, they were all such talented people in that band, right? So there's just a lot of strong opinions, and that's why that band is so good. But it's also hard to keep that energy all together. So when I lost it, like, it was devastating, and I just poured myself into university and just focused so much on that part of life that I was fortunate that I had that, and it was kind of like it allowed me, I think, to heal a little bit, and it just put some time in between the wound, and it just gave me time to heal. And so I had somewhere to put that creative energy for 5 years doing university. And the first few years of school of teaching, like, I was so busy, I didn't focus too much on the loss of the band. But certainly after 3 or 4 years of teaching, and then you get more comfortable with what you're teaching, and you don't have to put so much energy into it. I started really missing performing. There's no doubt about that. And at that point, we were still living in the middle of Saskatchewan, the middle of farmland Saskatchewan. So I was so far removed from this life that I had lived for so long. And um, yeah, it was an amazing opportunity and a wonderful thing, and I absolutely just jumped right at it. And it's um, no surprise, I don't think, that, yeah, that we kind of kept going, because it felt really, really good, I think, to all of us. It felt really right, and felt like there was a little bit more for us to say. So
Yeah.
it was a great thing to be able to do, and I'm so happy and proud that we were able to um, fix the things from the past, and get that energy all together again for one more record.
Yeah.
What
S-
was
s-
it, like coming back? Like, when you came back in and you started doing the thing again, was there like I would assume there's a period of time of like a little bit of angst, a little bit of anxiety, nervousness, like, that it's not just like stepping back in, and maybe it was, but like how long did that transition take to like get to be like, okay, we're all where we
Going
want to be, we're all where we
yeah.
need to be.
Going back to, like, the girl analogy, yeah, is it like are you worried about, like, yeah, this is the intimacy is not gonna be as good, or is it? Like, was it like,
Uh,
were you nervous
yeah,
that
there's
it's
a
like
million questions. There's a million questions that go into it. We were all grown men by that point, so a lot of the silly little things that may have been big bumps in the road were minor hiccups this time around. Um, but still, a lot of, like, the things that bug you about your friends, they don't go away, they're still kind of there. So um, we just worked as hard as we could to get through those things, and um, deal with each other's differences.
before we get too deep, I'm worried. I've always wondered, what is your mechanism to scream over technical parts or odd time signatures?
Um, I mean, those brothers are so smart, so intelligent with writing. And Compromise was a pretty straightforward hardcore band that I came from, so it was a massive challenge when I first joined Seven Angels. I mean, I just study the music so much. I just count. I just, like, literally have weird little things in my head where, okay, I got to count to 13 at this point, or I got to count to 6 here. Like, I'm not as talented as those guys, or I don't have that deep understanding of time signatures that those brothers have, for sure. Like, Kyle and I think, are a little more rock and roll. So I think there's a little bit more effort that is involved in us sort of wrapping our heads around those things. The brothers, that stuff. I mean, their dads, he's played with the Madison Symphony Orchestra their whole lives. They've been so exposed to um, different kinds of music, right? Like, my parents would listen to, like, T-Rex and Iggy Pop and David Bowie. Like, I listened to a lot of just rock and roll growing up, and Kyle comes from that same school of thought, whereas the brothers definitely come from a more classical background, and that's reflected in their understanding of music, their arrangements. Like, and so when our worlds met, it was a challenge for me, for surely. It was just a lot of, like, working my butt off to make sure I understood how things went, and I think a lot of memorization, not even necessarily all the time like fully understanding exactly what they're doing, but just knowing, okay, right after that little drum weird thing, okay, that's where I come in here. Like, I don't know.
I feel like being in
Not
Misery
easy.
Signals as a singer has to be tough in that aspect.
It is, and I think it's even, if you do understand the parts at times, like if you're playing the part, see whether you're playing it on drums, guitar, bass, like it helps you to know what's coming next, or like it helps you to understand that time. Yeah, for surely. Sometimes coming in on certain songs, to come in on time properly as the singer in Misery Signals is tough.
What was the hardest song for you?
Ones that Carl did, right? So the ones that I wrote, you just have this natural thing that like you've done it so many times, or you felt it that way, or that's how it initially came to you. So it's a
Mhm.
natural thing. But coming back and having to learn some of those songs, there was some few tricky parts like Failsafe, we're running up, ducking corners. Coming in on that part there after that little like middle section quiet part, like it has always been a bit of a tricky part to me.
Mm.
What else is tricky? Sunlifter is a tough one. Sunlifter timing wise is like a weird song. And so to sing that at times has been also a challenge.
That's one of those songs that I was just talking about in the beginning of the show where, like, because it's still new to me because it's like, that's those songs take a while to learn. I mean, for anyone that song though is so interesting. Like, as soon as you understand the little patterns, or you're like, "These people are actually geniuses. Holy
Yeah,
shit."
With Brandon, man, he's crazy. Like it's same as Failsafe, right? Like the exact same like rhythm he's doing in various forms or in different ways throughout the entire Failsafe. Like the verses, the choruses, the breakdown. It's just like it's crazy. And the kid wrote that when he's like 20 years old.
Fuck. It's interesting that you mentioned the songs that Carl did. We actually have a comment in here, a question for you from Nate Love underscore LTTE. He says that it was amazing hearing Jesse perform songs from Controller. What was it like singing those songs? Was it a challenge to feel connected to the music or the lyrics?
Yes, yeah, right. Because I think that my lyrics are so personal to me. But there's songs from the EP and Malice that Ryan wrote the majority of the lyrics to. So it's not completely foreign to me to be able to uh, get a feel for those lyrics. And a lot of those songs, when I was gone, Ryan wrote a lot of those lyrics too, right? So it was I just ask Ryan questions about it when I could, about what he meant, and try and get a good vibe for the song and get a good feel for it. But yeah, it was certainly a different thing, but it was cool to be able to, especially some of those songs. Like I think "Failsafe" is one of the best songs they ever wrote. So it was nice to be able to like perform that song, and to even like with live and the isolation live thing that we did. It was cool to sort of be able to put my own stamp on those songs.
I still listen to that. I've been actually listening to a lot of live stuff lately because something about recording, like studio stuff, seems so like plasticky. Not, I don't know how to describe it. I've been enjoying the rawness of live stuff lately. So that's been one of my go-tos. It's been fucking awesome. So
Yeah, for sure. And I think like Malice, as much as I love Malice, um, the vocals are very produced on that record. They're very like perfect. Very, I just did them a million times. So it was cool to do live in isolation and kind of have something out there that's more reflective of how we sound live.
mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was really good. We talked about how you felt, you know, be, knowing that your lyrics have affected people, but I want to know, there are two bands that come to my mind. One of them you mentioned. Two bands come to my mind that have influenced decades of metal, hardcore, metalcore bands. It's Shy Halud and Misery Signals. Have influenced countless bands. I mean, my old band that I was on tour with all the time, we ripped you guys off so much. I'll be honest, straight up. But so many bands have. Like, it's insane. What does that feel like, to know that you were part of such an influencing force?
Again, like being part of the thing is it's weird, right? I'm very proud that that we've been able to leave the mark that we have. Growing up here in Edmonton, like listening to Poison the Well and Shai Hulud, those were just big American bands that I didn't think we'd ever get to even like see, let alone play with, let alone maybe have some um, level of this same success or impact or something like that. Like Halud to me is the originators of what we do, right? Like that's they did it first. They everything I think that we aspired to be was pretty much done by them first. They're just technical, wonderful. I think the lyrics. I think that I like every version of that band, but Geert I think was my model of my perfect, like that was to me was the best a hardcore singer could be, so to do Furnace Fest this year and get to play with those guys and get to see him sing, that was like super super special and uh, great thing to be able to do.
Not to get too deep into the documentary from 2017, Yesterday Was Everything, but in one part you said, "I don't know if I could do this interview because it might bring up things that hurt too much." And then then you ended up being in the band until this year, pretty much. So there was something there. I know it was a tough thing to look back on and watch, but in the end, was it cathartic or therapeutic in a way?
To do the documentary.
Yeah, and also watch it, like, obviously, it was probably hurtful, like, the way, and I know Matt, was it Mixon did
Yep.
it? So, and I know he's friends with Ryan, and I know, like, there's probably some skewing going on, but I think what I'm getting at is I think hearing everyone airing out their grievances, there has to be some level of therapy in there, no?
Oh, for sure, certainly, yeah. I think in a lot of ways again, it's another super weird thing to be a part of. When I watched the first version of it, I was pissed off. I didn't like it. Like I don't know that had it been put out a few years later, and I kind of when I'd fully had my foot back in the band, I don't know that I would have even allowed it. Like it's a weird thing. Like that was right when I came back in. I wasn't even fully back in the band yet. Like it's kind of like we do Malice X, and then there's kind of a 2 or 3 year period there where those guys don't get things back together with Carl, and it's like, okay, are we gonna write some new songs? So when they showed me that first viewing, I was not happy about it. I didn't like how it made any of us look, and it's forever, right? It's out there forever. So it was a weird thing to be a part of, but I think true to form, true to Misery Signals form, like it's true art. It's real. Like there's no, we're not pulling punches there. And there's elements of it that I do like. I love the fact that it does tell part of the compromise story, and it does let people know, the history of the band on some level. But I think that there's parts of it that if I was the director, I would not have included, or there's a certain narrative that I don't know is that I love.
I could imagine. I'm sure that, every story has, so many sides and so many levels to it. But as a fan, I think it's so appreciated that it's there.
Right. And that's that I guess has been um a good thing, is that in conversations that I've had with lots of people through the years since, it is that it's always a positive thing, and it's always a lot of thank you for doing that, thank you for sort of putting your heart out there. So it is, it's very similar, I guess, in the same way of the way that we write music, right? Like it's true, it's honest, it's heartfelt, it's brutal. Like, there's no doubt, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing to be a part of. And when I guess when some of my kids at school say they've seen it, or other teachers or principals say they watched it, like I'm not always stoked. I'm always kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, and I had a principal come up to me and said, my old principal said, "That's not you, Jesse." And I was kind of like, fuck, like that's what I don't want. You know what I mean? So there's been different takes from it, and it depends. Some people think it's a really great thing, and I was really honest, and it's wonderful. But I also think sometimes it is a version of me that I'm not the most proud of, and yeah, there's parts of it that I don't love.
I mean, it also has to be tough because right off the bat, I mean, I don't know the Morgan brothers, but they seem cool and all that, but they're also brothers, they're twins, they're gonna even if they're wrong, they're gonna stick together. So there has to be like that level of automatically there's two versus one at any point. So that has to be during the duration of the band. Was that also a frustrating thing where you kind of were teamed up on?
I think there's always gonna be teams or sides in a band, but in any band that has brothers, there's probably gonna be a little bit more of a natural, like, loaded democracy or something like that. Um, and when I first joined too, it was like I'm the lone Canadian kid, and I'm a meat eating, like pot smoking Canadian kid, and I'm joining like a vegan straight edge band. So there was some pretty
Right.
serious differences out the gates, right? And also there was a lot of um it's just how it played out. But I mean, at that point, like those guys were in America and we kind of had to be in America all the time. So there was a lot of I had to be away from home for like great massive periods of time. And it was uh there was a lot on me at that time, and there's you can't talk about fairness because we're just like a young bunch of punk rock kids trying to do the thing, but it was hard. It was a challenge, and um the dynamics of the band were certainly challenging at times.
I could imagine.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
especially around then too, like, I know you kinda say in joking, like, the straight edge vegan thing. I feel like in that time period was, like, a really
Totally different,
prominent, like, specific thing in the
for sure.
scene, so I could see that being very difficult to
Yeah,
not
back then,
be.
I mean, like, I remember the first time that Jordan goes down to New York to see Hellfest, and, like, he smoked cigarettes then. He said, like he's like, "I would, like, go, like, hide in the back alley to smoke a cigarette," like, you're literally scared to do it, like, so, yeah, there was some real fascist elements at that point in hardcore, right? And, like, it's nice that I mean, and those some of those things are positive, like, I learned a lot from those guys, and I they were right on a lot of levels, man. I'm not against veganism. I'm not against straight edge. Like those things, there's some really positive elements about those things, but there's also sometimes sort of a tough guy fascist
Yeah, the
element
method.
that
Yeah,
gone
the
along with those
method
things.
of expressing the message is, it got a little extreme at times, I feel like.
Yeah.
yeah, beating the shit out of people for eating meat and stuff. Wild. It doesn't make any sense.
The greatest, like I mean, some of the most interesting times, like being like Salt Lake City too, where like it's a harsh Mormon presence, or I mean, like a really strong Mormon Christian presence. But like those kids would be like some of the most violent. Like, and it was like I remember being first few times being there, being so confused, like what?
Mhm. The best
I
message kids were always the most violent in the hardcore scene.
I did a tour with,
Beat those messages.
I did a tour with Carl from Earth Crisis, and I was actually and this is, like, later on in his career, so, like, I think he may have tamed down, but, like, I was definitely nervous because like, I'm not vegan, I'm not, like, straight edge or anything like that, but and I've heard so many things. He was very militant back in the day, but yeah, that movement is, I'm glad it's kind of calmed down a little bit though, but
Yeah, I agree. I really like Earth Crisis too. Like some of that early stuff. That's some of the first metalcore that I really hear up here in Canada for sure. And I never met him through the years. I only met him for the first time at Furnace Fest 3 years ago when we played, and it was literally in like the food tent. Like, so I go to get food, I get my like chicken and rice and everything, and and I'm by myself too. So I'm like, oh, where do I go sit? And I just see Carl sitting by himself, and so I'm thinking like, fuck, do I go over there with like chicken and rice or? But I want to go talk to this guy. Like I want to go say, like, thanks for everything you've done. So I did. I hope
how did
I
that
hope
go?
I didn't piss him off, but he seemed all right with me eating the chicken.
Yeah, I had that too, where I was like, I really tried to not eat in front of him on that tour, but like
Right?
you kinda it just happens. But,
Uh,
how did that go though? Was it, like, awkward or
No, not at all. No, no, no. Like it was. I just, I just told him how much he meant to me, and thanked him for everything that he's done. And we had a nice conversation. It was totally fine.
I love that. First of all, I've done that to you at a show, and I don't even like I don't expect you to remember that because that probably happens to you every fucking day. But I did it to also one other person, Derek's favorite band, Corn. We were playing some festival in Virginia, and Brian Head Welch was the band at the time. He wasn't in Corn, and we had the tent and all that. You know how these festivals go. So I
Right?
saw him, and I just walked right up to him, did the whole "thank you, you mean a lot to me," all that stuff. And he like his reaction was just like who let you back here?
Right?
You never know how that could go.
that catch 'em
And
in
I'm
the meth years, that would be, He's probably like, just leave me the fuck alone."
Right.
Yeah, you are way more gracious. So I appreciated that. You're like, "Who the fuck are you? Why are you back here?" It's like, "Wait, look at my tour lamp. Look, I'm kinda cool too."
I belong, I swear.
Yeah, I swear I'm one of you, right? Um, y oh god, we got off the weeds here. I do have a serious question though for you. Going back to the documentary, in that documentary, it detailed that accident, and it's gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching, it's brutal, and it was so traumatic, and I was wondering how long did it take you to get back in a van again? And how hard was it to go back on tour again? Did you go to therapy for that?
No, and I mean, like, in hindsight, right, like, as an older man, I look back and I guess the more years I live, the more flabbergasted I am about it, I guess, it's like, um, to me, right at that moment, it was like, I need to honor my friends, right? And like Seven Angels is everything to us. So I need to join this band and I need to do this for Daniel and Jordan and let's just go, 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 go. And there was some good in that. Like, it took me away from it at times, but it also thrust me right back into a van, right back on the highways, driving down dark roads, at night. And
Mm.
it was crazy. Like I started having like crazy panic attacks behind the wheels. So it was just something I just had to deal with. It doesn't go away, at nighttime still sometimes if I'm driving, I get pretty amped up. Um, it was great. It was a crazy thing. There's no recipe book for it. There's no playbook for it. Should I have gone to therapy? 100%. Should my wife tells me I should still go to therapy about it. Um,
What's stopping you?
it's a good question, man. It's a fair question. Yeah, it's a fair question.
I mean, it is hard to get vulnerable and open up with someone, especially someone you don't know.
Well, and
But
I think, I mean, it's something I promote, like within school, just like I was saying, teaching poetry last week. Like I absolutely preach the goodness of writing things down, of having conversations, of that sort of healing, cathartic experience. And and I know that it would likely do me some very, I mean, yeah, some good, but it's nothing that I did in the past, nothing that I've ever gone to do, and getting right back into that world was crazy. There's I don't know.
I give you credit for jumping right back into it because
Yeah,
it's heavy. Uh,
it's a
you guys,
tough balance. Sorry, Andy. It's a tough balance because that is your therapy, right? Like singing in a band and getting all of
Right.
it out is your therapy, but like the other part of it of, like you said, being behind the wheel, you're in vans, you're right there. So like in one facet, you're getting like what you need with the writing and the singing, and the other is the other part, right? I mean, it's a tough. I would say for me and Andy, we're both glad you did, and you kept at it because it did affect a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's why Malice, I think, connects on so many levels and why it's so strong. But it's like there's no way we could keep doing what we did, or I could continue on from that point forward. Like it was inevitable that the band was going to fall apart at some point. Like I was a broken human being.
well, yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's a part of us that even when we heal, it's just still you still see the cracks, even though you could heal. Right?
For sure.
You still see it.
Yep.
Um, but I want to see Mr. Z on here, maybe like a year or so from now after you go to therapy, and we'll have like a little chat about it.
Okay.
I want an update. I've been to therapy. I think it's good. I really do. But I also I watch The Sopranos. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I think it's one of the best shows ever made. And it's
Okay.
actually a comedy, which is fucking ridiculous. But it's an interesting concept that like sometimes people use therapy to like first of all, some people use therapy to be a better manipulator. Not that it has anything to do with this conversation, but then
Right.
also sometimes it doesn't help to keep talking. I also saw that it doesn't help to keep talking about your pain over and over again. Sometimes I mean, I don't know what does, but for me, I know it has. For me, I know it has. Because now, like, I think the more you talk about it, the more like regular it gets. Like you start with like I can't even I wouldn't even like a few years ago, I wouldn't even be able to talk with my about my mother without crying. Like no joke. But then the more I talk about it in therapy, the more it's like, okay, this is just a part of my life and I can move on. It makes it
Right.
less fucking harsh.
Yep.
Take it off the pedestal a bit.
Yeah. But I was wondering, so Misery Signals, you guys are obviously respected, well loved. Everyone loves you guys. But do you feel like Misery Signals got the commercial credit that you think is due?
Of course not. Shai
Why?
Hulud, like like in all honesty, right? There's bands I think that are originators. Like I think Poison the Well like deserves to be really really rich, right? They really set a kind of metalcore, on the charts, and they do well. Like they probably do pretty well financially, but I mean, playing that kind of music, you have to tour all the time. Like,
Yeah.
unless you're quite a big band. So I think Poison the Well deserves to be a lot bigger. I think Shai Hulud deserves to be really really rich and well off, and I think Matt Fox should just be able to just write riffs
Yes.
and that's it, and live a good life. But that's not the truth, right? That's not the case. Like especially with Hulud. Um, and, we're a niche thing. I know that all the crazy time signature stuff, and it's very very crazy heavy music. Um, but yeah, I think Misery Signals should have made it should have been a bit of an easier go for us than it's been through the years. Let's say that.
I'll tell you what I
What do you
think.
think? All right, you tell me what you think.
Okay, I'll tell you
no,
what I think real quick. It's not very serious at all. But I think that nowadays, if you see like people like Pete Davidson dating like Ariana Grande back in the day, got him really famous. If one of you dated one of these people, it probably would have helped. I don't know what you guys are doing, but
I don't know, man. It's pretty heavy
what do
music,
you
right?
think what do you think it is that pushes those bands, like the heavier bands that actually do catch that commercial success, that whether they deserve it or you may think they do or not, what like
Yeah, and
what
I
in your opinion
I
is it?
think I think it's just a little bit more straight ahead, right? Like I think a little just acknowledging like, okay, we just need to it's okay to have verse chorus, middle section, verse chorus. Like
Mhm,
we I think shot ourselves in the foot a lot early on. And I think through the years, like in the beginning, Stewart comes from a very punk rock background, so you sort of had Stewart's sentiments, his writing style. Kyle and I come from very rock and roll background, so we would push for a more traditional arrangement. And then you had the brothers doing their thing, and that's one of the things that made Misery Signal so good, I think, right? Is that we tried to find that balance. And I think early on, maybe that balance isn't as it's not there as much as it is on the later records. I think that the brothers learned to sort of give in a little bit more, to like write more straight ahead stuff as the years went on. Um,
mhm.
had we done that earlier on, maybe there would have been more success. I don't know. But it's technical music. It's a little bit crazy, and I'm screaming the whole time. So you're not gonna reach that many people, but there are big bands that scream and yell. But I think those bands are generally a little bit more straight ahead as far as time signature and song arrangements are concerned.
yeah,
Right.
it's just the way it is, and it's annoying. Fuck it, it's just the way it is. But I think a band like yours is like you may not have that reach commercially because of X, Y, and Z, but I think the fans are so diehard, right? I think that's what makes a band like yours special. People like you could do anything. You could put out stuffed animals with misery signals on it. People will buy it. Like it's such a deep love.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's not that like there might be popular bands out there, but like they'll just put them on a playlist. People will listen to your albums from start to finish.
Yeah. And that's,
The
yeah, that's
dedication.
Sure.
You agree. I love that. I love
I
that you
agree.
agree
I
with
agree,
me.
man. Yeah.
Yes. The biggest question that everyone's wondering is like, why the fuck you guys breaking up, man? What's going on?
I think uh, doing what we do, um, there's a time limit, right? There's a shelf life, I think, at some point. It's like a hockey player. The analogy I use up here for a lot of the people at school that ask me about it. It's like I think this last tour, because especially because it was like I could sing 2, 3 songs and have a break. Carl could come sing 2, 3 songs. Like we were firing on all cylinders again, and we were like as good as we were at Malice. Like I think we were as strong as we were from when I was 22 years old, and I'm 46 years old. Like it's not easy to do that. It's getting harder and harder and harder to do that, and I don't want to be a pale version of what we once were. It's like it's hard to let go, but I know it's the right thing to do. And like it was really hard as the tour went on, and it was like, oh God, like these shows are really, really good. And look what we've done, guys. Like we're so proud and so happy and so stoked, and everything was so wonderful. And so it made it even harder to let go, but um I just didn't. It goes back to the geography thing too, right? It goes back to us being from two different countries, and rather than fizzle out and be a weak version of ourselves, and then just do a festival or two festivals every year and kind of half ass it. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to see that happen to this band, this thing that was so important to us, this art that we um, worked so hard on. I just think it's the right move. It's not easy, but a lot of it's like Misery Signals. So much of Misery Signals is hard, but yeah, this is just the right choice.
God, my love for Misery Signals is insane, dude, and I'm so upset. But however, I think it's cool because one of my favorite shows of all time is Breaking Bad, and they just knew when to fucking end it. They ended it at season 5, so I respect it. I
Yeah, there's
respect it. I
something to
don't
be
like
there's
it.
something to be said, right, about not milking something and like knowing
Yep.
when it's uh, the due date is up.
When it's
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, that's true because I mean, you guys have like each one of your albums is like unique in its own way, but very like it's all like you haven't had like a flop. So it's like if you keep going, maybe the fear is it's not going to be as heartfelt or it's not going to be as good. Is that where you're coming from?
I don't think record wise. I think we would pull it off. My issue is the live performance. I think was more sort of where we were all coming from. Can we continue to perform at the same level that we did? And the truth is just no, right? Like as you get older, it just becomes harder and harder and harder. And could we have toughed it out and done another record? Probably, but that one took us 5 years, right? And it's like I said earlier with Malice, it was like we put 4 or 5 hours in every single day together, and then we'd be sitting up in my living room playing riffs and me writing poetry and stuff like that. Like it was 1 year of concentrated energy put into that record. The same amount of time and energy was put into Ultraviolet. It was just spread out over 5 years because we have kids and we have jobs and we have wives and like other things. So could we have done that again? I think so, and there was varying degrees of agreement and disagreement on exactly how we should go forward or not go forward. Some of us believe that we could write another record and do it, but the reality was that it took us 5 years to write Ultraviolet, and right, and in 5 years from when we started talking about that last year, I would literally have been 50 years old. And so if that's where that sort of like hanging up the skates things comes in, like, can we really do this? Can I actually perform? Like, I'm not that much older than the guys, but I'm a couple years older than the other guys, and a few 4 years older than Brandon. So it's a little bit more heavy or weighing on me, I guess, kind of. And as the singer too, right? Like Carl and I sing in rock and roll bands here, and like singing like Thin Lizzy songs or like that stuff is you can do that until you're 70 years old. That's fine. But doing what we do in Misery Signals live is not that. It's a very different thing. And so I wanted to be able to go out on a high note.
Yeah, that makes sense. On your own
Yeah,
terms.
definitely.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Yeah, love that. It's I seeing your last 2 shows, in Brooklyn, it was incredible. I felt like the energy was so positive, and you could feel the authenticity. I think you could see if there was like dissension or like shit going on in a band. It seemed like, and then Carl came out too. It seemed like you guys were just meshing. How was that with Carl, and how was that tour with all of you guys? Like, are you guys getting? Is it also that you guys are getting along? Is it really just what you were just saying, or is there anything? There's no beef, right? There's you guys are
Yeah. Oh,
good.
no, no, certainly not. I mean, Carl, I think Carl just went through what I went through, right? I think being the Canadian, being the singer in that band was hard, right? Like Ryan does write some of the lyrics. All the guys have some pretty strong opinions on the vocal parts, on all the parts. So um, I just saw a lot of parallels between my experience and Carl's experience. And when I came back, I fought, early on, I said, like, Carl deserves to be able to come back and do a farewell tour. If I'm going to write a new record with you guys, or like something like that has to happen. And it wasn't until, years later, but it was something that we all kind of agreed on early on, and something that I really pushed for, because I just felt it was, I knew what it felt like to lose that band, right? And I didn't want to put that same thing on Carl, and I always wanted him to come back and have the experience to say goodbye. And so that's what we all were allowed, and that was a wonderful, wonderful thing, And those shows in Warsaw were like, those shows in New York were reflective of how that whole tour was. It was just a really positive, good thing. And there was challenges along the way. Like, that was hard for me to get up there every night, and like, some shows, people said some things sometimes in the crowd, and it's like, Carl and I think sometimes had to, like, kind of guard our hearts a little bit or something. Like, it was a little bit hard on the ego for sure. Um, but I think just with their daily reminder, like, we're doing the right thing here. This is a great thing. And then to have those conversations with the crowd every night, you could see that. And I think too, we recognize as you get older, like, music when we're 16, 17, 18, like, those times are so special. So those kids who grew up with mirrors, those kids who grew up with like controller, like, though, that was their thing, and Carl's their guy. And then there's people who, I'm their guy. And it was cool that we were big enough, I don't want to say man enough, that we were good enough to, like, put all that other junk aside and just come back together and do the proper right thing and have a proper farewell. And it was scary and it was weird and crazy, but I think those times where Carl and I were on stage together singing, those are the most precious and the most memorable and the best to me. And it took a while. Like, the first couple of Vancouver shows, it was weird, and I know, and I can also see photo evidence and visual evidence, videos, like, there was a bond that got stronger over time. And I think Carl and I, like, holding each other at the end of the night, every night, there was times when it was like near the end where it was always real, but there was some times where it was like, man, like, we did it, man, we did it. And it's cool that we did this. This was the right thing to do. This was not easy, but it's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do is not always an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Do
as a
you
fan, that was a great, this is a great way to kinda do especially a farewell tour, like, to close it all out for everyone, like you said. These guys might have these albums, these fans might like these albums, but to see it done together with you 2 both on stage was special. I mean, maybe by the time it got to New York, which was a little bit later or a few in, you could see, like what you're saying, like, the bond. It was like it felt right. It sounded amazing. The energy was there. Like, there was nothing lost on any of it. So
Yep.
really, really cool way to do it.
what what were some of the things that you heard that you had to shut down?
Just people yelling from the crowd. And I mean, like, I had my daughter with me, right, a lot of the time. And it was probably in Europe, actually, in Germany, is where I was maybe the most sort of hurt in that regard. Like, just shitty comments, like, just more Carl, or get, no Jesse, or like, just, and like, that's ego stuff. You got to try and push that stuff aside. But like, I have my 7-year-old daughter with me, and it's like, this is not a competition. Like, we're here to celebrate this. And we're not making millions of dollars here. Like, we're doing this for the fans. We're doing this to do like I said, to do the right and good thing. So Yeah, some of those things where it didn't happen a lot, but the few times that it did, man, it hurt my heart, man, and I had to continue singing. I had to continue performing, and like I said, the worst part of it was my daughter standing side stage, right? So there's things that
Mhm.
I'm sure she heard that I wish she hadn't heard.
Yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense. People are unaware that that even if you're on the stage, you could hear things, and you also have feelings.
Yeah.
It's people are savages, but fuck them. Uh, these yeah, that show was those shows were monumental, breathtaking, and it made me think, why don't you eventually, maybe it would be cool to hear an album with both you and Carl. Like, would that ever be a possibility ever?
I don't want to say, and I don't. I'll never say never. You know what I mean? There's a few songs left over from Ultraviolet. Um, so I don't know. Is there a possibility that maybe we finish those songs or release one or two of them with Carl and I, or is there a chance down the road where the brothers write new music? And I don't know. Like, we are all musicians. We love the band. We love performing. We love um, making music. So I would never say that there's no possibility of something occurring, but I also know that we have a very strong opinion about what the band is and what it should be, and we're not just going to sort of be willy-nilly about releasing things. Um, Even just for that, like I know that one of the songs that we have left over from Ultraviolet's really really cool, and it's had we had the time, it would have been on the record. So was it good enough to release? Yes. And if we did, it would be. I would say Carl and I would likely do that, but we have to see if everybody's on board for that, and see if it's the right move. I mean, I like how Ultraviolet ends, right? At the very end of Ultraviolet, I say I love you, and
I
that's
love
the
you.
last thing. And if that's the last thing I say, like, that's pretty cool, especially for metal. Like, going back to the whole thing about positivity and trying to do something different. Like, I remember hearing Grade. I remember hearing Grade early on. Jordan played me the band Grade from Toronto, and in the Inefficiency of Emotion, the first song on their fantastic last record. Um, he's talking about a girl, and he says, "Do you love me?" And I remember thinking, like, that's not metal. Why? Like, that's so weird. Like, and it's that emo, it's that early emo kind of stuff, But there's something so heavy and so honest about some of the lyrics that he wrote, and so if that's the last thing I say is that I love you to my little brother, for him, if that's the last statement Misery Signals puts out there, that's pretty cool for me. I'm okay with that.
That is a great fucking answer.
That
I
is a
love
good
that.
one.
I I think one of the things I've always wondered is, you guys end with the summer ended in June, and that's obviously a very intimate and personal song for you. Is that one of those songs that when you play it every night and it's the last song that you play, does it bring back all of those feelings still? And or is it one, and does it bring up the pain, and or does it help? Almost like
Both.
therapy would, talking about it over and over.
It's both. It's both. But I think for that song's transcended, us. It's become something else to so many different people. So many different people have attached their story to it, their loss to it, right? Their experience to it. Um, so I want to feel it, and like, uh, probably the best, as harsh as it was on a lot of those shows. At Warsaw, did we do it where we did we do the Jordan video and Daniel video, the compromise video? We
Yes.
couldn't do it at all the places, right? So there was like some places didn't have the ability for us to do that. But on some of those shows, we put up old compromise videos behind us
Yes.
during Worlds and Dreams.
Yeah,
Um,
I was up there.
so some
Yep.
like I mean some of that stuff, it allowed me to sort of like really feel that again. And so I do with this year summer ended in June. I wanna feel that loss. I wanna feel how I felt as much as I can when I perform it, so that it's real. Um and I think I'm fortunate enough. Like, I we didn't I think because I left for so many years, that's sort of like, oh, I got to do this again. I can just fake my way through it. I didn't really have to experience a whole bunch of that, right? Like, I did it when I was young and I was angsty and pissed, and I lost it for a lot of years. And so when I came back, I knew to appreciate it and to sort of do my best every single time I was on stage. And so that's always been on my in my brain and in my heart. And certainly that was certainly forefront for the final tour.
Is that the best song Missouri Signals has ever written?
I don't think so. I don't think song wise it is. I think that it's really, really great. I think that there's melodies, right, that Ryan wrote. Like the end is amazing. You know, it's simple and it's that really it's Ryan Morgan. It's super intelligent. It's super melodic. It's super catchy. It's wonderful. And I think whatever I was able to do lyrically, you know, I was able to connect again to some universal theme that people can connect to. And it's not too crazy, right? It's not like super technical, that song. You know, there's quite a lot of repeating parts actually in it for especially for of Malice. Um, it's a good song. It's a good song, man. I'm proud of what we did there, but I think Fail Safe is a really good song they wrote without me. You know, I think that's a really catchy, great song. It's equal probably to Summer. I think some people would say 5 years is of equal level. I don't think so because I don't think 5 years lyrically I'm not as proud of it. It's a little too pissy for me. It's a little too like negative. I think Summer's I'm more proud of Summer. You know,
Mhm.
another kind of one of those things. Like if a fellow teacher or educator asks me about my band, um, I'm probably not going to tell them to listen to 5 years. As much as I think the last riff in 5 years is such a sick riff. Yeah, different people have different opinions on what the best songs are, but I think we did a lot of really great things with Summer, and it sort of set a template or created a model for us to follow and look to going forward.
Mhm. Did you I could have sworn I don't know, I was connected with this group of musicians back in the day, MySpace era, whatever, things slip out, and I think I could have sworn I heard that record with your vocals on it, like a demo. Did you do a demo of that second album, the second LP before
Well,
Carl went on?
half of those songs are written, right? Half of those songs are written before they kicked me out. So there's versions of like probably four of them that I had done like little bits, like not even full songs, but like maybe the verse was done on this song or the chorus was done on this. So there's certainly things out there of early demos from some of those songs, but not Failsafe, because Failsafe is one of the last ones they wrote, if not the last one they wrote for that record. Um, I think it was, and I think it was actually maybe one of those ones where they almost didn't make the cut, which is crazy because it's such a great song.
When
Have
that
you
album
ever jumped into one of Sorry. Have you ever jumped
What's
into
that?
one of those songs, like have you ever jumped into one of those songs like that Jesse did, like Fail Safe or and put your
Carl?
own thought to it, with lyrics and, like, how you would've
I mean,
approached
like I
it?
said, like I think with Live in Isolation, I was able to do that a little bit, but you want to honor and like not try and like be too crazy with changing what he did and what worked, and especially like with something like Failsafe, where I think they did most everything really, really well and correctly. Like I'm not going to try and change
Right.
it. I think
Yeah.
there's just different nuances with our voices, right? And the timbre, the tones of our voice. Like Carl's certainly a lot lower than I. I think I do more of the talking poison the well thing here and there. And I think at times that worked well. Like my version of his songs was cool sometimes.
Mhm.
Did you go through waves of jealousy and FOMO?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I didn't even listen to Mirrors when it came out. Like Carl Ferret, those guys from Ferret sent me a whole package of stuff. I remember right when that record came out. And like I didn't even listen to it. I didn't listen to Mirrors probably for 2 or 3 years, and after it came out, like I was just like, I'm going to become an English teacher. Fuck all you guys, and I don't care. You know, um, I think that's what I had to do. You know, to protect myself. And I was like I said, I was such a broken human being at that point too. Right? It was kind of like everything came crashing down at that point when I came back home. So I was not a fan of Misery Signals at that point. I just kind of tried to distance myself from that world.
And then time heals all, doesn't it,
It
Jesse?
can, man. It can if you allow it. If you allow it, it can. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So you guys, so what we've learned here is you want to end you wanted to end the band on your own terms, Breaking Bad style season 5, and you ended it with a bang. You and Carl got along and love each other. You all love each other. It's just time. And you guys are all artsy about it, and I fucking love it. It makes sense. It still hurts my heart, but I get it.
It
I
hurts
think
my heart too, pal.
what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do, man? If there's ever
We can
listen,
cross
let
our
me let me
fingers, hope
let me
more
put it this
songs
way.
come out.
I'll put it this way. If Brandon like if the Morgan brothers like if it ever happens and Brandon needs he's doing his dance thing or whatever out there. He can't play the drums, but you guys still want to go on. I will do it because I know I will do it. Do you know what I'm saying? I will help. I'll help you for you.
Okay. Thank you, man.
Okay, I'll help you push this thing along. If push comes to shove, just remember this moment that I'll be here for you.
All right,
What
Andy.
a
Thank you,
generous
man.
offer.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Listen, you've said it all. I couldn't even you said it all, man. I deeply appreciate your time and thank your family again because I know how you left them for an hour and a half and I appreciate that.
My wife is just waiting. So we are supposed she had set it up so that our daughter Mazzy was having a sleepover with my mother, grandma tonight. And so we had a big date night planned. And when I told her, sorry, I have this podcast that I have to do, she wasn't super happy about it. She wasn't super stoked, but she's a very
Sorry,
supportive, loving partner
I feel
and she
terrible.
got over it. So she's just sitting on the couch right over there. And now we're gonna have like a date night, like a little
Dude,
movie night or something like that.
that's
Oh
send
my
us your
god.
address
I'll
so we
make
can
it.
send her some
And
flowers. Tell her thank
Mazzy is happy to go to Grandma Carol's, you guys. So you guys sort of made that happen. So
made her night. Yeah, well,
Oh
we'll
well,
send your wife some flowers. Shoot us your address. Tell her thank you, and we really
yes.
appreciate it.
We'll send some really nice flowers. And I feel like a dick, so that sucks. But yeah, no, thank you so much for real. Actually, one last question. I do want to know real quick, so quick. Is the
no
guitar
rush,
riff at
man.
the end of 5 years the best riff ever written in history? Like the is that the best one ever?
I like the end of Commentator's Despair better, which
Okay.
is one of the songs from Seven Angels of Jasmine's Lullaby. And it's like but it's just Morgan, right? It's that sort of thing. I like that one a little better. It's a little, I don't know. I just like it. I like that one a little better. But 5 years, the ending of 5 years, really, really good. And a lot of people have your same feelings about that riff. It's a good one.
It's a great one. It's
Yeah.
a great one, Jesse. And you're a great one. You're my favorite singer of all time. I hate to see you go, but I know that you want some with your wife. The kid is out. You know, you're ready to go. You're primed and ready. She's definitely pissed right now. I know that.
It's hockey night in Canada too, man. So it's
Oh
a
boy,
toss.
really stepped on toes.
Dude. Well, we
All right,
really fucking appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
yeah,
Hey,
thank you
listen,
so
if
much.
anyone's whoever's watching this, did you pursue whatever you want, whatever you love as hard as you can. Don't fucking give up. I just interviewed one of my heroes in life. If I could do that shit, you could do anything. It's fucking insane. Jesse, you mean so much to me for real. The band has meant so much to me. It seriously changed my life. You're so fucking kind for doing this. I'm overwhelmed for real. And yeah, thank you.
Happy to do it, guys. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
thank
Cheers.
you.
Here, fellas.
This is great.
Appreciate it, man. Jesse Zaraska,
Thanks, Jesse.
everybody. Misery Signals. Thank you so much. Derek, what do we have? What do we have going on next week? I don't even know
Next
after
week
that.
we got Andy's on cloud nine. Next week we got Dennis Walsh from Dalton and the Sheriffs, a bass player touring around in a very interesting rock country band, trying it out. So we'll talk to him next week. We'll learn a lot. Later.
Later, guys.